Go ahead. Thank you.
Something that a few people have asked me about is concerns the prayer that men and women say when they wake up. Men say, Baruch atah Adonai asher lo asani isha. And when women wake up, they say, Baruch atah Adonai she'aseni kirtzono, if I'm not mistaken. Where does that come from? Why do men specifically use that prayer?
There's an entire literature on this very question, and there are surely many articles that have been written about it. There are many approaches. I think that according to one school of thought, maybe it has to do with the level of requirements, thanking God for extra opportunities, for so many of the requirements of the positive commandments, due to certain considerations in Jewish law, are not incumbent upon women. Some suggest that Shelo Asani Isha means thank you for the extra opportunity of being involved in all categories of halakha, all categories of Jewish law. Others suggest that maybe Sha'asani Kirtzono, the blessing of women, acknowledging the fact that God created them in accordance with the will of God. According to certain schools of thought, I believe Rabbi Hirsch, Rabbi Cook speak about this, that maybe in response to this Shelo Asani Isha, suggesting that they have so many commandments that women don't have, the men have so many commandments, she is saying, well, maybe you have all those commandments, but I was on the level of understanding this connection to God, maybe even without all of those commandments. Sha'asani, I was created, a woman speaking, kirtzono, in perfect connection to the highest will of God. So that the rabbis speak about the great level of intuition, the great level of added levels of understanding that women are created with, as manifest in the world. It's not a coincidence, but rather a ka-incidence, a creation of God, that women mature earlier than men, that bat mitzvah is 12 and bar mitzvah is 13. God surely could have created a system where both mature at the same time, more or less. And according to one interpretation in rabbinic literature, it's because bina yitera nitana bi'isha, there's added levels of understanding. So it could be that although maybe the man is reciting a blessing saying, Shelo Asani Isha, if I would have been a woman, I wouldn't have had so many commandments. Maybe I'm not obligated to follow this law, this obligatory practice. And the woman is saying, well, maybe that's so, but Sha'asani Kirtzono. Maybe you have to go through certain kinds of observances to get to the level of understanding or connecting to the Ritzon Hashem, to the highest level of the will of God. I have that built into my essence, Sha'asani Kirtzono. And I guess each person is supposed to be acknowledging the great blessing that they have. And I hope that all of the men in the world can celebrate being men, and all of the women in the world could be celebrating that they're women, and together bringing about the greatest blessings of Tikkun Olam.
Thank you. Can I follow that up with another question?
Surely.
Is there also a discussion about why specifically men say Baruch atah Adonai shelo asani isha versus Baruch atah Adonai she'asani gever or she'asani kirtzono?
If we continue with this interpretation of Shelo Asani Isha having something to do with a level of requirement of commandments, just that technical thing. So the way to emphasize perhaps the level of contrast is, well, here's my wife, here's my sister, here's my mother, here's my friend, here's my spouse, who is just as great as me, and yet she's not obligated, she's not involved in these level of commandments. So I think it's perhaps this contrast which was spoken of in this blessing, and perhaps one of the ideas of that bracha is that although so many people view commandments as shackles and bonds and annoyances, and I would love to celebrate a kind of life where I don't have to observe, all these laws. Maybe he's saying, well, I thank God for the fact that I have these added responsibilities. And one way of expressing it is through this contrast of statements. I don't think I know that there's a literature about people who have claimed that this blessing was trying to, God forbid, put down the status of women. I think a careful analysis of rabbinic literature, careful analysis of the attitude of the rabbis, both in the Talmud and the subsequent legal halachic literature, would surely bring a person to different conclusion. I think that there's a very high regard for each one. And although I could see how someone could read Shalom Anisha as like, well, I'm so happy I'm not a woman because, what a woman is. I don't think that's the really gut level intention of the blessing. Shalom.
תודה.
Okay, good. No.